Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our .org Solutions Coffee Shop webinar today. For those of you who have been with us before, it's been a few months since we've done our last webinar. We took a little bit of a break. And for those of you who are new, we're going to go a little bit over what our coffee shop format is for today. But welcome to everyone. We're really excited about today's presentation and hope that you get everything that you need out of what we're going to talk about today. So first and foremost, I'm Amy Wong. I'm founder and president of .org Solutions. We are a marketing, PR, strategic planning and fundraising firm located here in Akron, but serve clients all over the U.S. And I would also like to introduce my co-presenter today, who is Julie Breidenbach. She is the digital marketing specialist here at .org Solutions. And between the two of us, we're going to try to go through all of the high points of what the Google Ad Grant program is all about. But before we get started, a couple things I'd like to go over. Only the panelists are going to be visible on the call. So if you're trying to put your camera on or anything, you're not going to be able to do that. I'm sorry, because we are in webinar mode and all of you will be muted. But we do like these sessions to be interactive. So make sure that if you have any question, please put it either in the Q&A or the chat. And for those of you who submitted questions ahead of time, we thank you for those. And we will be addressing those either during the webinar at times that are appropriate, or we will save them toward the end. So just note that we do have time at the end of our webinar to make sure that you do have time for questions. And we do anticipate there might be extra questions today because I know Google Ad Grant tends to be a little murky for some people. So if we need to stay on after time, we will, but we want to make sure that we honor your time and the hour that you're devoting to this webinar today. So what I'd like to do is hopefully everybody can hear us. If you could just do a quick wave or say hi in the chat and let us know that you can hear us and that you can see us and you can see the slides, we would really appreciate it. All right, I see some hand raises there. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so we're really glad that you can hear us and see us. So why don't we just go ahead and get started? So we wanted to get started actually today with a poll. Because we really want to have a better understanding of where all of you were with your Google Ad Grant process, whether it's something you've been doing, something you've been thinking about, but we're going to do a quick poll. And so this poll is actually 2 questions. So if you could please enter both. And we're going to leave this open for a few minutes here. The first question is, have you ever applied for and received a Google Ad Grant? So if you could please answer that question. And if you have not, tell us a little bit about your success. So would you consider yourself amazing at it? Would you say you've seen some success, nothing to get excited about, or you gave up? Okay, well, it looks like we have a lot of people that have given up. We have some people who haven't applied and some who have actually done the process and haven't really seen a whole lot in the way of success. So hopefully we're going to be able to address some of those issues with you today because the Google Ad Grant process, though very exciting, can have some complexities to it. So thank you for answering that poll. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So hopefully by the end of today's session, you're going to come away with 3 major things that you've learned. And so we hope that you have a clear understanding of what Google Ad Grants are and what they aren't. I think that's a really important thing. I know that when I first heard about Google Ad Grants, I didn't have clarity on exactly what it meant and what they did. And so we're going to try to make sure that you're very clear on what they are and what they're not. We want to show how they can help your nonprofit because again, there's a lot of strategy involved with the Google Ad Grant program, and it can be very beneficial to you, but you have to know what you're really looking for. And then really some ins and outs of how the program works. So, as we were putting together this presentation, we really wanted to do a lot of the highlights of it. I know that some of you may be frustrated with the nitty-gritty, but we could probably spend days going through the complexities of Google. We're going to do the best we can to kind of point you in the right direction. So at this point, I'm actually going to turn it over to Julie, and she's going to talk to us about what Google Ad Grants are and what they aren't.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. So what are Google Ad Grants? Google Ad Grants is a program that offers free advertising on Google to eligible nonprofits. They provide up to $10,000 per month to advertise with Google search ads, and it's a great supplement to your current marketing, fundraising, and hiring activities. So we'll talk a lot about this throughout the presentation, but we want to make sure that Google Ads aren't the only marketing efforts that you're running. Rather, it's a great supplement to what you're currently doing, and we'll explain that a little bit more, like I said, throughout the presentation. For those of you who aren't super familiar with what Google Ads are, we wanted to show an example of a campaign that we are running right now for Akron Public Schools kindergarten enrollment. So you can see at the top, the user searched on Google local kindergarten near me, and that green box right there is a Google search ad that we had that populated for that search. You can tell that it's an ad because it says sponsored right above the URL. And you can see when the user clicks on this ad, it'll take them to a landing page where it's easy to enroll in kindergarten and learn more information about the program. You can see below the green box that another ad populated for Old Trail School. So more than one ad can populate on Google, and depending on what that search is, or also known as a keyword, will dictate what type of ad pops up. What are they not? So Google Ad Grants are not display ads. They're not meant to replace your current marketing efforts. They're not going to make it rain money for your organization, unfortunately. They're not meant for general branding and awareness, and they're not going to magically increase traffic to your website or organization. So all of this to say, like we said, these are a great supplement to what you're currently doing to brand and market your organization. So if we go back to that kindergarten example, we ran billboards, we had yard signs, postcards, we ran Facebook ads, we posted on Facebook to really brand that message about kindergarten registration and enrollment. Then when the parent is ready to learn more information or enroll their child, they can Google Akron Kindergarten or enrollment for APS Kindergarten. Our ad pops up and it directs them specifically to a landing page where they can learn more and enroll. So again, we really want these to supplement what you're doing and help your marketing and fundraising and really drive that traffic to your website. This is an example of a Google display ad. So if you're not familiar with what that is, up in the top right corner, you can see a display ad on the Yahoo page. Google does not support this type of ad in the ad grant program. It's only those search ads.
And I think that was one of the biggest points of confusion that I had when I thought about the Google Ad Grant program, is I thought, oh, wow, are we going to be able to run these search ads, or are we going to have to worry about ad retargeting, or what kind of information is in there? And I think at that point, you have to I think that's a really good point of clarity is what the ads actually are and what you would be getting free from Google if you do become a part of the program. So how can it help your nonprofit? So one of the things that it really can do is it can help increase visibility and traffic to your website. So anytime that you can get more people to your website, the more opportunities they are going to have to do what it is that you would like them to do. So, it can, drive people to do a lot of different things. It can encourage them to volunteer. They could sign up for a blog or your newsletter. They could make a donation. They could apply for a job, or they could get any information, maybe more on your schedule or the things that you have going on, maybe in particular a service. So, really the ultimate job is to have, when people are searching, they're able to find you. And one thing I think is important to know is when people are actually searching for something, think of your own habits when you're Googling something. When you're Googling something, you are more apt to act on it. So for instance, if you are Googling to buy a refrigerator, well, you're going to get all these ads for a refrigerator, but you're most likely actually really looking for a refrigerator. So you have a much higher opportunity or chance that the person is going to take action on what you want them to take. So let's say, for instance, you are an arts organization and maybe you want to sell tickets to an upcoming show that you have. Well, you have your standard ways of marketing, but maybe you have somebody who's not familiar to the area and they actually are like, well, what's going on in Akron this weekend? So there are opportunities for them to be able to find those things via search and use the ad grants to do that. The same goes for museums and parks. Those are really great opportunities to kind of showcase your organization through a particular sponsored ad. It's also great for introducing new services. So, we will talk about eligibility. Not all organizations, unfortunately, are eligible for the Google Ad Grants. Julie's going to talk about that in a little bit. But organizations, maybe you have a new service that you've launched that you want people to know about. Maybe you're an organization that distributes clothing or distributes food or distributes other things. Those are great opportunities to be able to highlight new things that are out there that people might be searching for. So, ultimately, drives people to your website, gets them to become more familiar with you, and you're getting people that are coming to your website who are actually really at the point where they're ready to take action.
So how does it work? How exactly does Google Ad Grants work? So the user searches on Google and your ad shows, similar to that example. When the user clicks, that's when Google pays. So that $10,000 per month that Google is providing you for free is basically all of those clicks that people have on your ads. You are not charged anything. Google will provide that for you. How much Google pays is determined by a couple things. So how relevant is your ad? If someone's searching something very specific to what your ad is providing, that's going to be cheaper than something broad. So again, in that kindergarten example, if someone is searching for Akron Public Schools kindergarten enrollment, someone clicking on that ad will be cheaper than someone searching for kindergarten in Akron. It's very broad. It's going to be more expensive. Google's also looking at competition. So who else wants to show up for that search? In our example, Old Trail School was showing up along with us. So someone clicking on our ad, it's going to be more expensive than if we don't have as much competition. And then how much are you willing to spend? So we're going to tell Google if we're willing to spend $2 for that click or $10 for that click. All of that taken into consideration will determine how much Google pays for all of your clicks to your site.
And I think when, that's always something that's a little scary, thinking, well, how do I determine that? So Julie, how do you actually determine that? Is that determined by, obviously, if you get the Google grant, you have $10,000 a month. That's actually a lot of money in ad spend if you're really only targeting maybe a couple counties in Ohio. If you're looking at targeting national, that may not be a lot of money at that point. So how do you really determine, what that costs and what you're willing to pay?
It's a lot of research. So you do have to look into that competition. Are there a lot of other people searching to show up for those searches? Then you're going to want to spend more in those areas. I would say segmenting to what's really most important. So if you are a national brand, finding specific areas that you want to make sure you're showing up more often than others, you'll tell Google, I want to spend a lot more in this area, or I'm willing to spend more in this area than blankets all over the nation. So doing research and prioritizing what's most important for your organization will help you determine how to spend that money.
And some of this comes through learning too, right?
Yep. The more you're running, you can evaluate and see how things are performing and tweak it that way.
All right, well, we'll talk a little bit more about this, and we want you to ask questions as we go along. because a lot of this is stuff that students may not be familiar with. So, all right, so let's talk about what's required.
Yeah, so when you're applying for the ad grant, Google is going to first evaluate your website. So this is super important because your ads are driving to your website, and Google wants to make sure that it's a strong site. So a couple things it's going to look at. It wants to make sure that your site is secured with HTTPS and have an SSL certificate installed. That's the little lock icon that appears in your browser when people search your site. They also want to make sure you have Google Analytics installed. So this is super important for evaluating the performance of your ads once the user visits your site. And then that you have copy on your site that states your nonprofit status. And overall, like I said, that the user has a really good experience when they visit your site. So if you think about any time you've Googled something and you click on an ad or something that pops up and it takes you to something, a page that's completely irrelevant to what you're searching for, or to a blog that's covered in ads or just has a lot of information that isn't what you're looking for, you're going to click off it right away. And Google wants to make sure with ad grants that people aren't doing that. They're driving you to a site that has a lot of information about your services, has specific actions that the users can take. So sign up to volunteer or make a donation. And overall is just a really well-built site. So Google is going to explore all of these things before they evaluate if you can be approved for your ad grant.
I think too, you think about what constitutes a strong site. I think it's really important that when you're developing that ad copy, when you're writing your Google ads, and that's something you have to do is write that ad copy, is that you could have ad copy that's so specific that it may just be good for you to create a separate landing page that is just about that particular ad. That's honestly very good practice if you have a specific campaign that you're doing, so that it has everything on there that will get people to take action. So Google likes that. They want to know that what you are talking about in your ad actually is what is on your website. So there's some opportunities to, push information onto individual pages as well. All right, so who is eligible? We talked about eligibility and how this might be a challenge for some organizations.
Yeah, so you must have a 501c3 tax exempt status, and you cannot be a governmental entity, a hospital or healthcare organization, or a school, academic institution, or university. There is a caveat that some supporting organizations may still be eligible if in this grouping of uneligible organizations, they have their own 501c3. So different philanthropic wings or things like that could still be eligible.
So if you're a hospital and you have a separate foundation, you may be eligible. Or if you're a school with a separate foundation, you may be eligible. So just because you fit into any of these particular categories doesn't mean that the grant program is automatically off the table. With that being said, we also, we're not Google, so we can't tell you, like if you said, well, I'm a hospital and we have a supporting foundation, I should get the grant, right? Well, that's really up to Google and that verification process that we're going to talk about in a minute. And so the best thing to do is to actually kind of go through the process that we're going to talk about next and try and see where things fall.
Yeah, so that process on how to apply for your ad grant. So first, you're going to create a Google for Nonprofits account by going to google.com/nonprofits. Through these steps, you're going to provide more details on your organization, your contact information, and you're going to fill out more information through this organization called TechSoup that Google works with. It's another nonprofit, and they work to just verify other nonprofits. So it's reputable. Google works with them. They're going to verify that you are eligible through, so if you have questions, if you start this process, TechSoup will let you know if you are eligible or not. They will then give you a token that you'll use to finish your account. Once you're approved through Google for this Google for Nonprofits, you can submit your ad grant application. In that step, then you'll submit your website and a few other processes We actually have a document that lists this out in more detail that we'll include in the follow-up email from this webinar. So that goes into more specifics of what to do also.
Yes, so please, if you're scrambling to write everything down, we will have it all on a one sheet with you, along with a recording of this webinar as well, so that you have it. So, for people who are applying, how long does it typically take to get your application from, well, there's two applications, right? So from beginning to end, how long could this process take?
It could take up to 2 weeks between figuring the Google for Nonprofits account, getting that all set up, getting verified through TechSoup. So they might reach out to you with more questions or information if they have them while going through the verification process. And then submitting that ad grant application is a couple more days. So I would give it between 2 and 14 days total.
So, we've taken a look at the grant and we've taken a look at this process, and, as nonprofits, and I'm assuming most of the people on this call are nonprofits or board members or doing some work with nonprofits. We think of grant and we think of, oh my gosh, it's this long, arduous process that requires reams of paper and, every person's bio and board members and how many children they have and all of those things. From an application standpoint, how complex or how complex would you consider it? Is it, relatively straightforward that, can be done in pretty short order, or is it pretty complex?
I'd say it's pretty simple compared to those complex grants that you may be used to writing. I think Google says in the application, it could take up to 20 minutes of finding some of that information, filling out the questions that it has, and submitting it all through Google and TechSoup. So as long as you have your address, your contact information, I think your organization's EIN number, some of those might take a little bit longer to get if you don't have it right offhand, but other than that, it should be fairly simple.
So from a complexity standpoint, Google does make it relatively easy, and also they are really good about walking you through the process once you get to it.
Yep, they do a really good job. There's also videos that show exactly what the screens look like that you can click through. So a lot of great resources Google provides to set up your account and complete the application.
All right, so we've done all this, we've been verified, we've submitted our application, we've been approved, now we have the grant. What do we do now? So, this is a tough one, right? Because I think this is where a lot of people get stuck. The Google does make it pretty straightforward. It makes it pretty, pretty easy to get the grant if given all the information. But I always say anytime you start any kind of marketing effort, you have to have goals. What is it that you really, really want to accomplish? So are you interested in having people find out about your services because maybe you're a new nonprofit, or you feel like you just don't have the awareness that you want to have, and you're looking to drive people under maybe a specific thing that you provide? Are you looking to raise dollars? And even though we said, Google ad grants aren't going to make it rain money for your organization, they can be really helpful as part of an ongoing fundraising effort. So maybe, if you're looking for, maybe you're an animal shelter and you're looking for donations of blankets or old towels. A lot of people are like, well, what do I do with my old towels or old blankets? So things like that might be really good ways to use a campaign. Maybe you're doing a big hiring blitz. Maybe you're an organization that has a large need for temporary employees. So maybe you have summer camps and you need temporary employees over the summer, and you could use this grant actually as part of your hiring efforts. And I think some nonprofits don't even think about that as a great opportunity. Even keywords like summer employment. So what are your goals? What kind of things can you do? So then you need to align those goals with your current communication strategy. So if you're a fundraiser and you have all these great ideas and you get this Google grant, you've got to really talk with your marketing folks as well, because, as Julie said, this is something that requires, work on the front end to get the grant, but it also requires that making sure that you have the right content on your website to support the grant and the ads that you're doing, or Google won't like that so much. So, making sure that your goals for the grant and what you want to accomplish with it are actually aligning with the current communication strategy of your organization. So if you are choosing to do hiring, you probably should go have a conversation with your HR people and find out, how can we use part of this grant? You think like, well, I want to have it all to myself, but $10,000, like I said earlier, goes a long way when you might just be only focusing on your local region. Whereas, if you're national, it's a different story, but you might be able to get a lot out of that $10,000. So it might be really, good on your part to talk about, the communication strategy with your entire team. Next thing you need to do is assess your website. So, we talked about this. Is it secure? Do you have your SSL certificate and Google Analytics installed? Is your site also set up for people to take action? I think this is one thing that a lot of websites, and this is not just nonprofits, we see this in for-profit websites too, is that you have one contact button maybe anywhere on your whole entire site, or one donate button on your whole entire site. Well, when people are scrolling through your site, they're looking for opportunities to take action. If you're driving people to your site, does the page have content that are relevant to your goals, but also the goals of the person who is searching? Their goals are what you have to keep in mind as well as yours, because they're never going to get to you if you don't understand what they're searching for and providing them the information they're searching for. Do you have calls to action? So if you have new services, maybe somebody has a question, is there a form that they can fill out to have somebody call them back, or download maybe information that would be helpful to them? Is your site easy to navigate? Is it really hard to find what somebody's looking for? Maybe you're looking for board members or maybe you have an application process for something. Well, if it's impossible to find on your website, then people are really going to they're really going to get turned off, and they're going to go away, and they're going to go to somebody else. And then, as I said before, it's like, are you answering the questions people are searching for? So this is where keyword research is going to be really important, and is going to provide you with the most success from your grant.
Now you've set your goals, your website's ready, you're good to start setting up your account. If you have experience, or people on your team who have some experience, are interested in learning, that's a great place to start. Or it's okay to get help if you don't know where to go from here, or what exactly goes into building an ad account. It can get pretty complex very fast based on some of the things we've talked through and what we'll continue to talk through. So don't be afraid to ask for help or learn a little bit more on how to set up Google Ads. But what goes into that? So you're going to build out your campaigns. You're going to identify those keywords. So you're going to do that research and see what people are searching for. What do we want to show up? What types of searches do we want to show up for? Writing that ad copy, making sure it's relevant and that you have a lot of good information in your ads. So when people are searching on Google, they can read a little bit about your site or the page they're going to click on, and then choose to click from there. You're going to decide where you want to show up. Is this a national campaign, or do you want to keep it very specific to a certain county or a certain state or two? We also want to identify our negative keywords. So these are the searches and phrases we don't want to show up for. So again, in our kindergarten example, we don't want our ads to show up for people searching for preschools in Akron or kindergartens in Cleveland, because that's not relevant to our site at all. So we want to make sure we tell Google that. And then again, it all goes back to the site. So evaluate those pages people are landing on. If someone is searching for a new path that they want to, explore in the area, and you have some information on your site about paths, but the page that they click on takes them to the water park in town or something like that, they're going to click off of it immediately. So making sure your landing pages are relevant and have the information that tie back to your ads and keywords.
So if I were to look for keywords. So can you explain a little bit more what keywords are? And is this something that the ad platform helps with?
Yes, so Google has a lot of tools that can help you build out these keywords, or another word for keyword is the search or the query that you're putting into Google to find what you're looking for. So the first place I would look for those is Google Analytics. So if you have Google Analytics set up and it's tied to Google Search Console, which is another Google tool, that will show you what people are currently searching to land on your site organically. So without ads, people are still finding your site on Google, and what they're searching, they will provide you with that list, which is super helpful. I'd also look at the top pages on your site that people are visiting. So if a lot of people are looking at very specific pages, I'd start there and say, what would people be searching on Google to find this page? Because if that page is very popular, people are looking for it. And then once you get your account running, Google has tools where you can type in certain keywords. So if we know we're building out a campaign for kindergarten enrollment, I can type in kindergarten enrollment and registration, and Google will provide me with some other examples of popular phrases people are searching for that are similar to those phrases. So a lot of great tools that Google can provide you to help build those lists.
So one of the questions that we actually had come in prior to the webinars, which now is really good timing because you actually refer to this. So can you specifically target demographics and geographical location?
For Google search, you can only do geographic locations. You cannot segment based on demographics. But something with that geographic targeting is you can set a location you do want to show up for and you don't want to show up for. So same with that negative keywords, we can say we do want to be in Ohio, but we definitely don't want to be in Pennsylvania because we have another wing of our organization who's focused there. So we don't want our ads to show up there.
And that's, I think, something that's really important is there are reasons why some ads can't be super hyper targeted. And I think the reason I would feel for search is because it works a little differently than a display ad. So a display ad actually is intended to, you're paying to reach people based upon specific demographics. So we want to reach parents potentially with kids. So let's take kindergarten, for instance, with kids ages 4 to 5 who live within specific zip codes. And, you know, what does that look like? So you want to kind of do a little bit more demographic targeting in that respect. So you might target adults ages 24 to 40, but maybe we want to expand grandparents because some grandparents are, you know, helping out with these activities for, you know, registering kids. Whereas search is based upon the searcher, not the advertiser. So I think that's the big difference in this. And so I don't think you necessarily want to target, there's no real reason to target demographics, I wouldn't think.
Yep, it doesn't matter what your demographics are. We want to show up if you're willing to search for what we have to provide. So great example.
All right, so Google gives us this grant, and we always think that grants potentially come to an end, but Google isn't exactly like that, but Google wants us to do certain things to keep the grant. So let's talk a little bit about keeping the grant.
Yeah, so Google wants to make sure that if they're rewarding you with $10,000 per month, that you're spending it wisely. And they're going to be monitoring a lot of things every month to ensure that. So looking at your campaign specifically, there are some target metrics that they're going to be looking at. So maintaining a 5% account click-through rate, that's what CTR stands for. So however many times your ad shows up, 5% of the time, they want to make sure someone's clicking on it. So that makes sure that we're not keeping our ads super broad and they're showing up. If no one's clicking on your ad, Google's like, what's going on here? You know, why doesn't anyone want to click on your ad? So that's a strong metric we need to make sure we're hitting every month. Keyword quality score of 2 or above. So quality score is a metric that Google rewards your keywords for how strong they are. And 2 means that it's relatively strong and you're keeping up with having relevant keywords. 2 active ad groups per campaign, 2 site link ad extensions. So these are just assets of your account that you need to make sure you're keeping up with. That's specific geo-targeting, so you can't just blanket target the whole United States. You do have to be specific. You can have national campaigns, but you can't just have one campaign that targets the whole United States. They want to make sure you're doing specific targeting, having specific marketing efforts with goals around the nation. So they're looking for that. And then no single word keywords. So just more complex searches. People aren't really searching for just kindergarten in Google. You know, there is some intent with that search. So the keywords that we want are more than just one word. And then overall in the account, displaying active account management. So it's really important to note that this is not a set it and forget it type of account management. You really have to be in there monitoring your account and making these updates. You're tracking those conversions or those actions people are taking on the site. And then you're actively looking into Google Analytics to see how everything's performing. So again, Google wants to make sure that you're keeping an eye on it, and honestly, that you have someone that knows what they're doing managing your account, and that someone just didn't set it up and you're kind of looking at it. They want to make sure their $10,000, like I said, is being put to good use.
So when we talk about conversion tracking to track goals, and so part of the goal setting isn't just saying, we want more people to come to our website. So maybe some of your goals might be to, you know, have a certain number of people click this button, or it might be a certain number of people filling out a form, or a certain number of downloads. So those are things that you kind of work with also. So those are things that Google can help work through with you, correct?
Yeah. Google, like you said, Google doesn't want to just send people to your site to leave or learn something and bounce off the site. They are encouraging you to have things that have people sign up to become a volunteer or make a donation or doing something on your site to help your organization, not just learning about it and leaving.
So we have another question. Is there a minimum versus maximum you can earn or spend?
Yeah, so there's actually another way we can look at that $10,000 per month. Google equates it to about, I think, $328 per day you can spend. So if you break out, say, $5 per click, you know, $328 you can spend per day. I'm not going to do that math right off the top of my head, but that's about maximum how many clicks or how much you can spend per day. There is no minimum, but if you're not spending a lot of money, Google will definitely look at these expectations in detail to see if there's more you can be doing to drive that traffic to your site.
And again, that's all about keeping the grant. So,
yep,
Google is being nice, but they want to make sure that you're using it as well. All right, so let's talk a little bit about monitoring the ads. So this, I think, speaks to a lot of the account expectations. And so how do we actually monitor our ads?
Yeah, so like I said, it's not a set it and forget it. There's plenty of things you can be doing throughout the month and weeks to optimize your account and make sure you're getting as many clicks and as many visitors to your site. So reviewing those keywords, what's performing and what's not. Are there certain searches that are doing really well and driving to your site? And are there other searches that you thought would do well but aren't? So looking at those and updating the phrases, adding new ones, is really important to constantly be doing. Looking at your ad copy. So do you need to update that to be more relevant? Is there new information you can add to your ad to make it more appealing for people to click on? Do you have an event coming up that you can include in some of that ad copy that would be like, ooh, there's something going on this weekend. Let's make sure to include that in our ads that could drive some more visitors to our site. Are our bids competitive? So bid is another word for how much you're willing to spend for those clicks. So say you're willing to spend $5, but you're not really getting a lot of traffic. And you look at that competition to say, wow, we're actually having a lot of other people show up except for us. We got to increase those bids and say we're willing to spend $8 or $10 per click because we need to be more competitive with those searches.
Can I ask a question about bids? Because this was always something before I got more into understanding what digital meant. I always thought about bids as like I had to sit, and it was like, when you're talking to a nonprofit, you're thinking of like the paddles going up and there's auction, and you have to be the last one to write on the sheet before it gets taken away. Or I know that's a little old school, so there's all the more, electronic bidding. This is a little different than that. So can you explain it a little in better terms, maybe, than what we might be thinking of in terms of bidding?
It's different, but it's actually a little similar, more similar to that than you would think. So we are telling Google a bid is how much we're willing to spend for a click. So like I said, say we're willing to spend $5. Our competition is willing to spend $4 or $4.50. How much we spend, so Google will say, okay, we are willing to spend more, so we're going to reward them with that top spot on the page, but we're only going to charge you $4.51 because we're only going to charge you a cent more than what your competition is willing to pay. So it gets really tricky. The word bid does get very confusing, but you're saying how much you're willing to spend, but the bid amount, similar to, the paddle, is only going to be a little bit more than what your competition is.
So I think what's interesting about that, and this is what is nice about a program like Google Ad Grants, is that it's money that Google is giving you. So there is some latitude to experiment, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good way to state that, because if you're spending your own money, you're going to be a little bit more conservative, I would say, with what you're willing to spend. Maybe, a couple dollars is all you want to spend per click if you're spending your own money. But with Google's money, let's be willing to spend $10 or $12 for that click that's super competitive, because we have enough to spend throughout the day and we know we can beat out the competition. So it does take a lot of monitoring and really evaluating what's performing. Google will give you some metrics and some more information about if you're missing out because you're not willing to spend as much. So, hey, if you spend $7 instead of $5, you could potentially get 20 more clicks. It's like, thanks, Google, I'm going to do that. So there are resources available that are really helpful in that way, but it's important to keep an eye on it so you're not missing out on a lot of those users.
So we also want to evaluate the competition, right?
Yes. So who else is showing up? What are they willing to spend? Are they showing up above you on the search? Are you constantly below that old trail school that always shows up when people are searching for kindergarten? Or are we beating them out with our ads? That's important to keep an eye on and see what's going on with competition.
And, we talk about like the evaluating competition. That's not going to be the same all the time, because maybe there's some organizations who either aren't using the Google Ad Grant, or they are, maybe their busy season for a particular activity is different than your busy season for a particular activity. So that's where the monitoring is really important, is you don't want to, set $5 as your bid, and they're at $4.99, but then like 3 months from now, they're not even on the radar because that's not even a campaign they're running. So that's, I think, why it's important to really constantly, and constantly, maybe, how do you say that? Constantly doesn't mean like every minute of every day, but regularly, taking a look at how things are performing. Because, $10,000, you can do a lot with it, but it does take some work to put it into it. So talk a little bit about location targeting.
So location targeting ties really closely with competition. So if you think about it, the broader the area you want your ads to show up in, the more competition you're likely to have. So if you find through the tools that Google gives you that you're not getting a lot of clicks for a certain campaign, your competition's beating you out a lot, it could be because you're telling Google that you're spreading yourself a little bit too thin. And that you're trying to target so many areas that there's so much competition, you're just not really beating them out consistently. So looking to see what are those areas that you're not performing as well in, and can you create specific campaigns for those areas, or just break out your account more specifically where you're still hitting all of those areas you want, but maybe it's not as broad. Maybe it's through 4 specific campaigns instead of one big one.
And we've talked about that too. It's like when you're just getting started out, it's better to start small and then start to kind of tweak things and figure out, what's working and what's not. And then you just start to kind of increase as you go, which also makes it a little more manageable, and you learn a lot more from the data that you're able to collect.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're trying to blanket the whole United States right away, Google's going to be like, whoa, what are you doing here? How popular is this site really? So the smaller you start, and you can show Google that you're getting a lot of clicks, because Google is really looking to make sure if someone's searching your keywords and your ad is popping up, that they're clicking on it. So that's that click-through rate, that 5% that's listed below. They really want to make sure that people are clicking to your site. And the higher that is, and the more relevant Google sees your website, the more often they're going to show your ads. So that's something we didn't talk about in too detail, but Google's going to evaluate if they should show your ad every time. It's not guaranteed, because you want to show up for a keyword that your ads are going to come up every single time. But if Google sees your site as strong and people clicking on your ads and having good experience, you're more likely to be showing up and getting more of those clicks.
All right, so here we are on the home stretch, and then we are going to be ready for questions here pretty soon. So to kind of recap what we talked about, Google Ad grants, $10,000 grants per month. This is per month for eligible nonprofits. This is for search, not display. So just again, remember, when you are Googling something and you see it says sponsored and it has an answer, that search. If you see something that pops up and you're like, wow, I was just shopping for a refrigerator. Now I have Lowe's and Home Depot and every other refrigerator sale that's going on is now in my feed with an ad. That is not what you're going to get. So just make sure that it's for search and not display, up to $10,000 a month. You're going to need to complete 2 applications. The first application is going to be for the Google for Nonprofits, and that's to verify that you're an eligible nonprofit. And then the second one is for the Google Ad account for grant management. So 2 applications, 2 accounts, though relatively straightforward, and Google will walk you through both of those things. You're definitely going to need to make sure that your website is secure, you have strong content, you have great user experience for the people who come to your site, and that you have analytics installed for your website, because without it, you're not going to be able to do anything that you need to do to monitor campaigns. And this is, again, as Julie said, it's not a set it and forget it type of grant. This is certainly something that is requires care, requires planning, and ongoing maintenance. So I know one of the questions that we specifically had is this type of grant something that small nonprofits can handle? And I guess Julie and I talked about this because we thought this was a really important question, and we wanted to make sure that we addressed this question correctly. I think our feeling was that if you are going to let Google invest in you, you're going to have to invest in the grant program in some way. So whether it is your nonprofit invests in having a particular employee learn how to run Google Ads, monitor the program, plan for the program and everything, that's one option. Or you're going to have to outsource it, which is a second option, which there are affordable ones that you can do. But I think that ultimately you as an organization, no matter what size, are going to have some investment of either and or time, money, and involved in making sure that the initial planning and setup is correct, and then also the ongoing maintenance. To that end, though, if you're doing the program correctly and you're doing the project correctly, it could very much start to pay for itself in relatively short order. And so, the Akron Public campaign that we showed you was not a Google ad grant campaign, but it was a paid campaign. But we could see success already after the first month in what was actually happening and driving people to the website. And so I think that's the most important, thing I would say, is that there's going to have to be some investment at some point Again, whether it's, somebody internally becomes certified and understands how to use the Google ad platform, or that you're actually working with an outside partner to make it happen. Do you have any thoughts on that, Julie?
No, I think you said that all very well. Completely agree. I think it will definitely show a return very quickly if you invest the right time and resources in it and drive that traffic to your site.
All right, so we have about 10 minutes left, and we usually like to leave the last few minutes, 10 minutes for questions. And I know we had some that came in ahead of time. I don't know if we've addressed every single one of them. But please use this time to let us answer your questions for you. Are there ways to get it on all social media platforms or just web searches? Yeah,
so the Ad Grant program specifically will only be for Google searches. It does not carry over onto Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. Again, it's just for people searching on Google and having those ads pop up in the search results page.
So I guess a question I would have for that is, so if you had an ad grant that sent somebody to a Facebook page, can you do that?
No, you can only send them to your website specifically. So that's why they want to check and make sure that you have a strong website. If you're doing a lot of work or your sole website, you would say, is your Facebook page, I would definitely consider building out your website before you start running Google ads.
And what are some things too about, we didn't go super in depth into the website. What are some things that we could maybe recommend to look at on websites that people might be searching for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would have someone who isn't super familiar with your organization take a look at your site and ask them, do you know what our organization is about? Are there places on here that you can learn more or volunteer, make a donation? It depends on what your organization is really looking to accomplish, but look at your goals as an organization and make sure that those are stated on your site, or that there's places for people to learn more about your mission and your values, and maybe examples of how your organization has impacted the community. Plenty of things that you can build out on your site, but it always helps to have an eye of someone who isn't super familiar, and they can have a good recommendation to be like, I don't quite understand this page, or if I was looking to volunteer, it would really help if you built out information on that.
You know what I've always recommended this, because I always find that the people who answer the phones, or the frontline people, are the ones who have the best insight into your organization. So if you have someone who is answering, the main line of your phones, I would actually sit down and talk with them and find out, like, what are some of the questions you get asked all the time? And I would start to track those and use those as keyword information and information that you could have on your site, because I always find that to be so enlightening. And you think like, oh, really? They asked that? I bet you'd be surprised if you said, what are some of the most frequent things you're asked, or what are the strangest things that you get asked all the time? Like, yeah, people wonder if we are this kind of organization. It's like, wow, that's kind of interesting. Or they wonder if we accept these types of donations. So, maybe you're an organization that accepts donated furniture, or donated, housewares or clothing or things like that, but you don't accept XYZ, or you expect it, or maybe you accept something that somebody else doesn't accept, or maybe your organization, takes those goods and directly gives them to a person to use right away, as opposed to reselling it. So what are some of the unique things also that your organization may be able to provide, or that you may know about that others may be looking for too? So think of those kind of things that make you unique too, that people might be searching for. And I always say, put yourself in the position of the searcher.
Mhm.
You know, the next time, you know, I always tell people like we do a lot of like billboards and we do signage and stuff like that. I said, before you think about what you want to have on any of this, just drive around and figure out who has the best of this, and this. And so when you're Googling, think of like when you get really frustrated if you're searching for something, you know, why can't I find blah, 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 or what are your most successful searches and how does that actually happen? And when you get to a site that has that perfect pair of, you know, summer sandals that you've been looking for, or that really cute dress for the wedding that you have to go to, or for the guys, maybe it's, you know, athletic wear or something else. But, you know, what is that user experience look like when you get there? It's easy to find. I got what I was looking for. And Google will reward that, and you'll start to see the rewards of that specifically for your organization. So no other questions. So either people are totally overwhelmed, are perplexed, or we did a great job. So hopefully it's 3. But you know, we know that a lot of times questions do come up after you get off of a session. So a couple things will happen. We will be sending out these the actual recording of this within the next couple of days. We will actually also send you a download to kind of walk you through the application process with all the links and everything, just to make it easy for you. And then also too, if you are actually interested in, you know, help with your Google Ad Grant program, we're here if you need us. So in addition to some of the things that we do that you may know us for already, we also do Google Ad Grant setup and management, strategic planning, and we also, for anyone who works in HubSpot, we actually offer support for HubSpot for nonprofits. So again, we're here if you need us, and we can help walk you through all of that, and certainly be a good resource for you. So we appreciate everyone who has attended today. Again, I'm Amy and Julie. We're both with .org Solutions, and you can reach both of us at I'm at amy@.orgsolutions.com, and Julie is julie@.orgsolutions.com. And you can also, if you're really interested in learning more about anything digital, anything fundraising, we have a ton of learning resources that are on our website. We have, you know, well over 100 blogs. We just launched a new short video series called Espresso. And we also, you know, have a lot of these webinars that we have as resources for you that you can access through our website. So thank you for attending. We don't have any other webinars planned at this point, but if there are topics that are of interest to you that you would like to, you know, get some more information on and you think would be good for a webinar format, we'll certainly take that as well. So again, thanks for attending. If you're in Ohio, enjoy the wonderful weather today. And for those of you who are maybe joining us from elsewhere, hope you have a great day and get some sunshine as well. Take care.
Thank you.